let's talk about something so many remote companies are struggling with right now. It's this weird mystery. Why, with all the tech and all the communication, does your team still feel like a bunch of strangers? I mean, if you look at it on paper, everything seems fine, right? Everybody's connected, the Slack channels are lighting up, the calendars are packed with meetings, and the work is getting done. It really looks like the system is working. But this is the reality for so many of us. There's just this professional distance, a lack of any real human connection that you can't quite put your finger on. It feels efficient, for sure, but also kind of empty.
So that's the big question we're going to dig into. We're going to unpack the common mistakes that companies are making and, more importantly, reveal why the usual fixes just completely miss the point.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the so-called solutions that most companies try. And you'll see why they usually end up backfiring and, honestly, can make the whole disconnection problem even worse. The first major problem is what I call the async everything trap. There's this big push for total flexibility and deep work, which is great, but it leads companies to just slash all meetings and real-time chats. The intention is good, but what happens is everyone ends up working in their own little bubble. And you can just see how this plays out over time. It starts out as a celebration, right? Look at all this deep work, no more meetings. But a few months in, that efficiency starts to feel cold, transactional. And by the 6-month mark, you don't really have a team anymore. You got a collection of super efficient strangers who just happen to work for the same company. Now, this right here is the critical piece that most companies totally miss. See, there are two different kinds of synchronous or real-time work. You've got transactional sync, stuff like status updates, that, probably should be done async. But then there's relational sync. This is where you build trust, you read the tone, you pick up on what's not being said. That stuff absolutely has to happen in real time. The huge mistake is throwing out the baby with the bathwater. All right, so when companies realize they've gone too far and try to bring back some of that connection, they usually make another classic mistake. They treat connection like an extracurricular activity. And this is so important because it's all about the message it sends. By making your virtual happy hours and coffee chats optional, you're basically telling your team, hey, the real work is required, but, actually getting to know each other, that's just a nice to have. It completely separates connection from the actual work, and that's exactly why it doesn't build a real culture. So if those quick fixes don't work, what's really going on? We've looked at the failed attempts, so let's get to the actual diagnosis. The problem isn't your tools or a lack of social events. It's about what your company is fundamentally built to prioritize. I mean, this chart really says it all, doesn't it? For most remote companies, the big goals are productivity, flexibility, maybe some cost savings. And connection? It's just an afterthought. It's that tiny little 10% slice of the pie. You can't build a strong culture when you're only giving it 10% of your focus. And here it is. This is the big idea of this whole explainer. The answer isn't tacking on more social stuff. The answer is to actually redesign how you work every single day, to build connection directly into your operations. So how do you know if your team has a problem? Let's do a quick diagnostic. First question, when was the last time somebody on your team actually admitted they were struggling with something and asked for help? If you can't remember, or if it never happens, that's a huge red flag that your culture doesn't feel safe. Okay, diagnostic number 2. Think about each person on your team. Can you name just one personal thing about them? Not from their LinkedIn profile, but something you learned in a real conversation. If you're drawing a blank, it means all that essential relational sync time has completely disappeared. And finally, ask yourself this. Do people on your team have any idea what their colleagues are working on before it's delivered as a finished product? If the answer is no, it means everyone is just working in their own silo. All the messy, interesting, collaborative stuff is happening invisibly. All right, we've diagnosed the problem. Now for the good part, the actual blueprint for how to fix it. We're going to walk through 4 very specific strategies to intentionally design connection right into your team's everyday workflow. So here they are. It's about creating structured vulnerability, using work-in-progress channels, having protected overlap windows for real-time connection, and making communication public by default. These aren't just suggestions, these are real operational changes. And let's just double-click on that idea of work in progress, because it's about what it really means to work out loud. See, it's not just announcing, hey, I finished this thing, here's the link. Real working out loud is more like, I'm seeing a weird pattern in this data. Has anyone seen this before? It's an invitation into the messy middle of the work. And that's where connection and collaboration actually spark.
So what does that first one, structured vulnerability, actually look like? Well, it's not just a vague suggestion to be more open. It's a system, a process. For example, you make it a rule. Every team meeting starts with one person sharing a real struggle for 5 minutes. It rotates. It's non-negotiable. Suddenly, being vulnerable is just a normal part of how you work together.
And all of this leads us to this really fascinating and kind of counterintuitive idea, which is the remote work paradox. This is it. This is the single most important takeaway. Stop trying to schedule more happy hours to fix the problem. The best, most connected remote teams don't see work and connection as two separate things. They make the work itself the main way that people build relationships.
So let's reframe this whole conversation. Remote work is not the enemy of connection. The real enemy is invisible work. When all the thinking and the struggles happen in private, connection dies. If you can make the process visible, you make connection possible.
Okay, so to wrap it all up, here are the big things to remember. You have to protect that relational sync time. Stop making connection an optional extra and start building it right into your workflows. And please stop optimizing just for efficiency. You have to design for visibility and interaction. The fix isn't social, it's operational. So, I'll leave you with this one last question to really think about for your own team. What's one thing, just one, that your team does together in real time that is not about a status update or a project? If you can't name a single thing, well, now you know exactly where you need to start.